Hello everybody, my name is Plain Old Jim, and welcome to Automation, the car company Tycoon game. Now, this is actually a really fun game that I've been playing for about a month now. What makes it really interesting for me is that I'm actually a mechanic. I work for Toyota. So, what's really interesting about it is that it's very realistic in the way that it handles the geometrics of the engines and everything, because you can literally take the numbers and the values from a real engine, pop them into the simulator, and it will produce lifelike horsepower and torque numbers, which I found really interesting. And you're able to actually, build your own engine, kind of throw whatever the hell you want at it, and it'll actually produce lifelike numbers, and it'll tell you what's going on with the engine, if it will be sustainable as an actual engine, depending on the type of fuel that you use and the ignition timing and everything. So I thought I would create a video and explain to you guys what everything is while we give it a go. So here we go. I'm going to sandbox mode. We're going to not build a car because the cars, they're fun to build, but there's not much other than, there's no, it's not quantifiable data. It's just a car, and you're like pulling and twisting, and I like the engine part where you can actually see the numbers now. So we're going to go to new engine here, and then we are going to build an engine. Now, you can choose the different, you can pick inline, 4-cylinder or 6-cylinder, V or a V flat plane. I want to build an inline 6. Let's build a Toyota SUPRA motor. Alright, now what we're going to do is it's going to be a cast iron bottom end. Oh, look at that, it's so pretty. Now, SUPRA is a 3-liter inline 6. Now, you have your bore and your stroke. Your bore is up here by where the pistons are. The bore is actually the diameter of the piston head. Now, as you can see, if you make the bore bigger, you make the engine block bigger. The stroke, if I disassemble that, does this actually show it? No, it doesn't. Stroke is actually how far up and down the piston moves. And that will actually affect how much crush there is of the air-fuel mixture, and will depend on the power. It also changes how the RPMs, how high the RPMs can go, and things of that nature. So we're going to, I'm going to pull this to there. We're going to go, okay, now CCs is the displacement, and CCs kind of works out almost evenly with liters. It's a 3-liter V6, or inline 6, which is about 3,000 cc's. It will take a little bit. Now you can actually change this in the settings for European or United States, American, or Imperial, or whatever you want to call it. So you can change it from cc's to liters. You can change the inches to millimeters. You can change horsepower and torque to newtons and all that stuff. But I live in America, so I'm going to run this as a US setup. So we're actually going to go with a lower stroke and then a higher bore, and we're going to aim for that magical 3-liter. There we go. 3,017 cc's, about 3 liters. Now, why did I go for a lower stroke? As you can see there on the bottom of that little tooltip, lower values, higher max RPM. Now, the reason that is because the faster the whole thing moves, the quicker the mass of the piston has to move. Now, if you have to move it an inch up and down, it doesn't have to move very fast to move that inch. But in the same amount of time, if it has to move 4 inches, it has to speed up a lot quicker, which can actually cause the metal to fatigue and actually break on you if you get it moving too fast, or you accelerate it and slow it down too fast. So the smaller the stroke, the quicker or the higher RPMs it can go, because it has less mass. It has to accelerate as fast, if that makes sense. All right, so we're just going to keep that 3,000 cc's. We are going to go with an dual overhead cam setup, because that's my favorite, and anything else other than that is too old. It is going to be a 4-valve system. I love how it does that. Block disappear for you guys. Bam. And then we're going to go, the head's going to be aluminum. VVTLs like Honda's VTEC. We don't need that in this motor. Now, this is going to be a turbocharged V6, and you have the cast, the forge, and the billet steel. cast iron is cast from a single mold. They're not structurally very strong. It's better to have a forged system or a billet system. Now, billet's very expensive, but we want to keep the cost down a little bit on this thing, so we're going to go with forged steel, just like they have in the factory. The titanium and the steel and the forged H-beams. Now, we can really do a heavy-duty cast, because I don't think we're going to be breaking anything, because this thing's not going to be putting out crazy horsepower, it's just going to be putting out about 300 horsepower. And then we're going to go with the forged pistons. There we go. I love the way that looks. You can put the block on it. You can see the pistons all the way come up. You can get in really close, and then you can see the valves move. Ahead. Alrighty. Now, variant capacity, that's not something that we have to deal with. And then this is one feature of the game. I'm not quite sure what it is. I think this has to do with the actual production quality of the thing. So you have less random events, but I am not sure. I'm just going to max it on everything. Alright, now we're going to... Okay. The compression ratio is a ratio between how much space there is when the piston is all the way down compared to when the piston is all the way up. Now, the less of a ratio there is, the less that's actually going to crush. Now, when you crush something, it gets hot because all the little molecules in there start bouncing around and hitting each other more often. And heat is the enemy of an engine. You want it to run as cool as possible. So, especially with a turbocharged engine, which we're going to be making, and you're going to be forcing as much air into there, you're going to exponentially increase the amount of air. That is exponentially going to increase how hot it gets when you crush that amount of air. So, the lower the compression, the better. We're going to aim for, let's go with like 10 to 5, maybe, I think 9.8, the default setting is actually good, because a turbo car will run between 8 to 10 to 1, where a naturally aspirated engine, where the engine just naturally sucks in air, will run between 10 to 12, and then high performance ones will be 13. But that's not something we're going to be doing, because we're going to be running a turbocharged engine. Cam profile, we're going to just kind of pull it into the sport. This, I think, is just a default number system. The actual number, like 2773, is not an actual, it doesn't correlate to anything in the real world. It is just an arbitrary number dependent on this slider. So we're going to put it into the sport. Let's put it evenly into the sport, so we'll go to 70. We don't have VVT, VVL, so we're not going to use that, but we are going to use the VVT, which on the Supra it had on the intake cams. And without getting too complicated on how it works, what it does is it adjusts when the valves will open and close, because dependent on how fast the engine is turning, the actual cylinders itself will have different demands on when it needs the air. And the VVT is a recent, it's a recent design that allows for change in when the cam does its work. And then we can choose aesthetics, where we can go with the style. White valve cover. We can do the color. Ooh, that's pretty, but no. We're gonna go with, I believe. Yep, let's go with that. And then, ooh, black, blue, red. I like green. I like the green. We're gonna go with green, and then it's gonna be great quality because everyone works here for me. Great. We're going to go turbocharged, like I said. We're going to do single turbo on the side. There's your turbocharger. What turbocharger actually does is naturally the air will get sucked in through the intake side and then come out the exhaust side, and then just naturally kind of flow out the exhaust. But that exhaust, which is moving quite fast and is very hot, is just, that has an energy that it doesn't really do anything except go out the back and, ruin our atmosphere and create carbon emissions. And, well, what if we were to take that hot flowing energy and repurpose it so that we could make it spin something or have an extra duty other than just, go out the back? So that's what a turbocharger does. As you can see, there are the 6 exhaust pipes that go into the turbine housing, which then spin that wheel, which is attached to this wheel, which naturally pulls air in through it and then shoots it into the intake, thus increasing the amount of air that can go into the engine. So rather than the engine pulling in its own air, there's air being forced into it. So we're going to go with a journal bearing, because that's how it is on the Supra. The Supra did have a medium air-to-air intercooler. Now the thing on the left we have here is actually our dyno chart. We don't really have to worry too much about that. I'm not paying too much attention because we're not worried about the actual numbers right now, we're worried about replication. And the actual compressor and turbine size, that's a good question because I'm actually not familiar with what it is on Supra, so I'll look it up. Okay, my quick Google search did not really return much, but you can see big and small. There's the compressor side, which is this. This is what controls the air getting sucked in. Then you have your turbine, which controls the exhaust side. And your AR ratio. So what we're going to do is we're going to do about there. About 18 psi. Crank that up. Okay. And there's our turbo. The injection with multi-point EFI injection. Oh, look at that pretty intake manifold. You got your intercooler too. Oh, it's so pretty. So as you can see, with there, you have your air box here, right dead center, and you have your little intake. And it's going to go through there, get sucked into the turbo, go pressurized through the turbo into the intercooler, which the air passes through the grill and then cools down from the ambient air outside of it, and then gets pumped into the intake and then into the motor, which then pressurizes it, combusts it, shoots it out the exhaust, which then goes out the exhaust, but at the same time also goes out the turbocharger, which then spins the turbocharger wheel and sends even more intake air in. It's almost like a little exponential scale. So it's going to be single throttle with Windows performance intake and race intake. Now we're just going to go with the standard intake. And this thing, it's going to use premium, but it's not going to use anything crazy. Alright, the fuel mixture is actually how much fuel goes in a ratio compared to how much air is in there. So, rich is more fuel, and lean is less fuel. Now, for gas mileage, you want to lean it out. The problem is that when you lean it out, it actually makes everything run hotter, and like I said before, temperature is the devil of motors. You want to be able to keep it cool. So, you need to run it rich enough where it's not so hot that the motor will start running itself, and that's actually called knock or pre-combustion. So you want to be able to control what the motor's doing inside there, so you actually have to keep it rich enough. You have to put enough fuel in that it doesn't start running itself. So we're going to keep it pretty damn rich for this. We're going to go 10 to 5 to 1. The ignition timing, I believe this is also an arbitrary number. I like to pull it up a little bit because I played with this game before, and the RPMs I said before. Now we'll see if I pull the RPMs up really high, we'll actually see the motor break down, but we don't want that, so we're going to keep it right around, I think the stock factory limit was about 76. And this is part of the manifold. I actually don't understand why this is part of this when it comes to the turbocharging. We don't want a bypass valve. We're going to make it a 2 3/4 inch exhaust. You know what, who cares about cats? Not me, because this is imaginary. And then we're testing it in the shop, not in a car. We don't need mufflers, but they're high quality anyway. And let's see how our engine runs. Those are actually really good numbers. Now this thing made a lot of torque. I think it made a lot of torque because it was actually a lot more bore than it was stroke. Why, I don't know the specifics of it, but having a bigger bore does allow for more torque at the lower end. So we made 372 foot-pound of torque and 312 horsepower, which is about what the Supra was doing. I believe the Supra was doing 320, or 300, something around there. For a 90s supercar, that's actually really good. This lower graph, I don't understand completely. I do understand that it made 18 psi at 3,400 RPM. The other things I don't really understand. I think 1.8 0.031 pounds of, that might be fuel pressure or something, I'm not sure. Then we have the thing on the left, on the right here, which will give you a rundown of how the motor ran. Now you can see the actual components of the motor, the air filter, the two turbos, the intercooler, the throttle body, the valves, all that. They were all green, there were no issues to report. It says here the bottom end part is reducing reliability as it is starting to reach its RPM limit, which is perfect because it didn't break. If we were to rev over 7,600 and take it up to 8 or 9, something may snap. That's not what we want. Engine is running rich or reducing the power output. Now that's good though, because if we were to actually lean it out, we may actually encounter some kind of knock or something breaking. We can lean it out and reduce the amount of fuel going in to make it burn better and create more power. But that's not what we're going for. We're going for something economical, something trustworthy and safe. Okay, so we don't have to worry about that. Okay, so it's the rods that are actually going to have issues if we rev it any higher, but we're not going to, so that is great. Now it also says to manufacture each motor will take $5,600, which is good, I guess. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. This is my first video. I hope to do a lot more. I hope to do a lot better at it. Be able to talk a little better, just like that. Yeah, I hope to see you guys next time, and thanks for watching.